Okay, since we already implemented the basic authentication and secured the login route with that, let's now do the JWT strategy and secure some routes with it. So these routes will only work when you presented a valid JWT signed with the same string this, which again it should be from an environment file. Don't just copy paste it everywhere like I did. Okay, so I already registered the plugin, the Hapi JWT. This is how you install it. So Hapi JWT, and the types, it's the same thing but prefixed with @types /. Okay, so yeah, my PC is slow, but I hope you don't mind. Let's just register that. So first thing, we need to create the function, the same thing we did here. So I would start at the top. So export const validate JWT will be equal to a function that accepts connection and gets the user repository and return an async function, and that async function accepts the payload, which is a partial user entity. This is, or not payload, the decoded. This is the decoded JWT. So they will decode that for us, getting it from the headers, decode it, and put it as an object here. So since this is a partial user entity, I can just get the ID and the request. This is also here. This is the happy request. My PC just hanged. Just wait a little bit. Okay. And the third thing is the response toolkit, which I didn't use till now, or not till now. I did not use until I didn't use. Maybe I will use it in the next videos. But anyway, so from the user repo, I will get, so const user will be equal to await the user repo dot find one by the ID. So this would be a user entity, and so if we don't have this user, just return is valid to false, and by default return is valid to true, and that's basically it. So let's import this here from auth. This is my alarm. 1 second. It's just let me just open the code to remember how I can register the JWT. It's the same thing as the basic, but yeah. So server.auth.strategy. So here you name it. The first argument is you naming it as you want. So I'll just name it the same thing, JWT. Now the scheme is JWT. Now this is something important. This is the key. So this should be the same one you defined here. So remember, this is not a good way to store these kind of strings. Just put them inside a .env file and refresh them everywhere. And this should be very, very secret. This is very sensitive information. Okay, so don't commit this like I did. Now the validate should be, the validate function should be the validate JWT and pass the connection to it. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So let's just test that a couple of times to see what will happen. So npm run ts node dev index to TypeScript. So first thing, let's log in, right? So let me get a user. So open database, the HapiDB, refresh a couple of times. I will get one of the users. Or before that, let me just go to /users and see what will happen. So this is the default behavior. We should just see data. But let's go and implement our authentication, or add it as a guard, you can say. Let's go to the user controller, and inside our first route, which will get everything for us based on the filters you passed and stuff like that. So the second argument after the fourth property after the handler, I can't speak, is is the options. Will be strategy, JWT, and that's it. So let's do it again now. Come on, it's running. It did not break. So yeah, invalid token, because I think I already added one here. So let me remove it. So I put it. This is the default send. So when it's invalid, it will give us that this was invalid token, and when it does not exist, it will give us missing authentication, which is nice. So let's now authenticate. Let's get a user. Yeah, already opened that. Come on. So this is a user. So let's authenticate. Okay, now get this JWT and go to this route and put barrier token and put the token here. Okay, so send. Now everything is fine. So what will happen if you are wondering what will happen if you played with the data inside this token? What will happen? So let me show you what will happen. So JWT, I will just get the data from here and just play with it, change it. So I'm trying to pretend that I am a different user. Let me show you how this will go. It won't work. Our API will be secured from that, because it will realize that this is not a valid token. It's got changed, and even if you passed a token that you generated from another API, it's not signed with the same key, and probably the user is not the same. So this key. So yeah, this is taking forever, but I think you got the point. But this is basically how you implement authentication. Now I think the only thing left is the authorization. And yeah, so if you want by default to add the JWT authentication to every route, you just put server.auth.default, just pass the name, this string. And if you want some routes to not be required the user to if you want some routes to not require the user to be authenticated, you just pass for example this one, here. So for example, the patch, you just pass options authentication to false, and this will take care of it. Okay. So yeah, hopefully this loaded. Yeah, back to my point. So this is the JWT we have. Let's change my ID to different user, so 5. So I'm trying to fake myself, man. So put this here, try to get the data. You will see an invalid token, which is very nice. And even if you just changed any character from here, it will give invalid token format. I think it depends where you change it, but yeah, I think this is the point. This is the maybe the simplest authentication implementation. So yeah, thank you.